Well, good day to you again. We are basing, or I'm basing the presentation today on the book Catastrophe Disentanglement, which was published in 2007 by Addison Wesley, and was fortunate to win the 2007 Jolt Award. We will provide more information. Obviously, we're not going to read the whole book here today. We will go through the essentials of the catastrophe disentanglement process. But at the end of this presentation, there will be sources for more information and more details for those who are interested. Oh, we're going the wrong way there. Just one moment. Here we go. Well, let's look at some background information first about catastrophe disentanglement. First of all, we're talking about late software projects. Anyone involved in software projects knows that a late project is not rare. In fact, if you're responsible for late and over-budget software projects, you're by no means alone. Software project overruns are very common, unfortunately. Is the situation getting worse or is it getting better? Well, that is one of the key questions you have to ask whenever you have a problem. If the situation is getting worse, then obviously you've got to look at the tools available to get your project back on track. So if serious problems have existed for quite a while and the situation is getting worse, not better, you may indeed be looking at a catastrophe. Another question you have to ask is, you have to look at existing solutions. There are, to be honest with you, there are no formal existing solutions for a project. The existing solutions that we're mostly aware of are preventive, not corrective. And that's true of solutions provided by the PMI, the IEEE, the SCI, ISO, and the various other software engineering support organizations worldwide. So the objective of the catastrophe disentanglement process is basically to fill in that void and help projects that are in trouble get back on track. Once again, catastrophe disentanglement then is a corrective process, and we describe a 10-step methodology or process to disentangle a software project and, as I said, get it back on track. Let's look at some data first. How common are software overruns? Well, we all feel, certainly all of us who are involved in software development, that they're too common. But the question is, the feeling justified? Does the data support the impression that we get? Well, one of the organizations that I work very closely with is the Carter Consortium in Boston. And the data that we collected there, according to that data, in 39% of surveyed organizations, more than half of the software projects overran their schedule. Now, what are we saying here? We're saying that 39%, that's a large number. That means that a significant number of software organizations have a serious schedule problem. What's a serious schedule problem? It means that more than half of their organizations don't meet their schedule. I'm sorry, half of their projects don't meet their schedule. Now, if more than half of their projects don't meet their schedule, that is a serious problem, and it's not just happening in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% or 10% or 15%. It's happening in 39% of software organizations. Another interesting item of information that we discovered at Carter was that in 38% of surveyed organizations, more than half of the software projects overran their budgets. Now, the numbers are very similar, and we shouldn't really be surprised, because when we budget a project, obviously every extra week, every extra month, every extra quarter that we spend on that project is going to cost us more money. So the similarity between the 39% and the previous slide and 38% here shouldn't surprise us. budget overruns and schedule overruns go hand in hand together. Another interesting piece of data, 44% of surveyed organizations have abandoned or canceled software projects due to significant overruns. Let's just look at that piece of data again. 44%, that means almost half of all the software development organizations have canceled or abandoned some of their projects. Now, obviously, there's no worse way to waste money than to throw away a project. Now, obviously, sometimes it's the right thing to do because, as we will see, there are cases where the development of a project that is not on course, and it's just there are obviously cases where projects are not. It is not advisable to complete the project. In other words, sometimes the right thing to do is to abandon the project. We look at that topic just a little bit later. But let's look at the next line here. 15% of organizations have abandoned more than 10% of their projects. In other words, we're saying that, yes, almost half of the surveyed software organizations have abandoned or canceled projects that were in trouble. But we're not saying that they've just abandoned or canceled one or two or that they do it rarely. In 15% of the cases, they've done it to more than 10% of their projects. So I think these three slides provide us with data that reinforces the feeling that many of us as software professionals have that catastrophes or serious problems with software development is a fact of life. It exists. Whether this will always be the case is certainly a debatable question, but it is something that exists in a significant number of or proportion of software development organizations, and therefore, if we're smart, we better learn how to deal with them. And that's what this presentation today is about. So when is a software project a schedule catastrophe? In other words, when does a schedule determine that a project is in serious trouble? And the answer is simple. If its delay is growing uncontrollably. What does that mean? It means essentially that we have everything we try in order to pull the schedule back in to where it should be is failing, and we don't expect it to get any better. So how do we determine if the delay is really out of control? Here's one method of doing it. We divide the schedule into 12 phases, and we look at the last 3 phases. Now, if we're looking at a 1-year project, this is, of course, very simple. Then we just divide it up into 12 months. But, of course, not all projects fit snugly into 1 year. Some are shorter, some are longer. But look at 12 equal parts, schedule parts of your project, and ask, has the delay grown steadily in each phase? We look and we say, look, from the beginning of this project, or is there a noticeable point in this project where the schedule has been, the delay has been growing and is basically steadily been getting worse? If the total delay now is greater than the 3 phases, which is 20% of the total project schedule, then we are basically saying that we have a schedule catastrophe. Now, here's an example. In a 1-year schedule, we look at the last 3 months, and we ask, was the delay significant 2 months ago? Was the delay even greater 1 month ago? This month, has the delay grown again? And then we ask, has the delay growth been steady? In other words, we're not just saying